Good evening, everyone. My name is Councillor Richard Ziegler and I'm the Mayor of Warrnambool City Council, and I'll be chairing tonight's council meeting. I'd like to formally welcome everyone watching this council meeting via live streaming. The council meeting is live streamed to allow for public viewing and transparency, and if any technical problems interrupt the live stream during this meeting, the meeting will be adjourned until the issues are rectified. This scheduled council meeting will be conducted in accordance with council's governance rules, and any interruptions to the meeting or actions not in line with the behaviour expectations will be dealt with in accordance with these rules. Councillors, I would ask you to stand for the opening prayer and acknowledgement of traditional owners. Almighty God, grant to this council wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose for the good governance of this city. Amen. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we stand and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Are there any apologies for this meeting? Being no apologies, we move on. Councillors, at item 3 on the agenda, we have a recommendation before us to confirm the minutes of the last meeting. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Scheduled meeting of the council held on 7th of February 2022. Do we have a motion? Do we have a mover? Thanks. Councillor Arnott. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jelly, thank you. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. If a councillor has a conflict of interest, they must declare it now and do so again just prior to the item being discussed. A councillor who has declared a conflict of interest must leave the meeting and remain outside the room while the matter is being considered or any vote is taken. Once the matter is resolved, the councillor will return to the meeting. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? Councillor Jelly?
Yes, Mayor, I've got a conflict in agenda item 7.9, TAC funded botanic.
Thank you. We also have received, in accordance with our governance rules, a conflict of interest declaration form from Councillor Taylor, who has declared a general conflict of interest for item 7.9. Mayoral presentation, we'll move on to that. This past month has been one of great activity for all of us. The CEO, Peter Schneider, and myself attended Spring Street meeting with members of the Great South Coast, now called the South West Alliance, to advocate for this part of the world. The CEO attended, and while we were acting in concert with the Alliance members, we took the opportunity to spruik the needs of our own area, in particular the rail system. We discovered that the rolling stock for our area had not yet even been ordered. We tied that into the importance of the rail to the people of the entire southwest, which included the export, import and freight movements, passenger movements right through to the southeast of South Australia. Very important system. Great South Coast Food and Fibre meeting, which was attended by Councillor Blaine and myself in Hamilton, at which the organisation's 18-point plan to consolidate water sustainability for the southwest on the premise that a 10% improvement in efficiency has enormous impact on the local economy, up to $40 million. that particular 18-point plan has now been disseminated and is being disseminated and discussed with all the stakeholders. So that's an incredibly important plan that we were proud to be part of. Thank Councillor Blaine for attending. The South West Alliance Surf Club was the scene for the tourism get-together with Dan Tehan, Minister for Tourism, Councillor Jelly, Councillor Taylor, the CEO and myself attended part of that, and also the South West Alliance discussions, which the CEO has illustrated with much more detail. The Portuguese Festival was held the weekend before last. It was a great event and a great event for the Portuguese community of Australia, given that the Portuguese Ambassador de Silva, attended and was here for the weekend. He was most impressed with Warrnambool, with the hospitality he was shown, and as part of that he was given a tour of Flagstaff Hill. He attended the dinner on the Saturday night, which the CEO and myself also attended as guests of the Portuguese community. And we were treated to a lecture or a discussion of the reasons for Portuguese interest in Warrnambool by Carlos Pereira de Lemos, Comendador, from Portugal, currently living in Australia, who made connections, famous connections, between the possibility of the Portuguese having arrived on our coast and possibly, and according to the Portuguese, probably discovered Australia before anybody else. That was followed on the Sunday by celebrations down at Lake Poteau. I've commenced the Circular Economy course with the United Nations, local government and Barwon South West Waste Recovery Group, which will be a 6-week course to give me some more insight into developing recoverability and the sustainability for rubbish and increasing our knowledge of a circular economy to improve our efforts to be sustainable and environmentally sensitive community. We attended the Port of Warrnambool Reference Group and the Swimming Club this past week as well. It's public question time. We have received a question. All questions have to have been received at no later than 2 hours before the commencement of the scheduled council meeting, or 4 p.m. on the day of the scheduled council meeting, where it's scheduled to commence at 5:45. We have received another question which will be taken on notice since it wasn't delivered during the requisite time. We have a question here. And I'll call on Brian Kelson to ask his question.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 22nd of April 2021, the Warrnambool Standard reported that the residents were being asked to have their say on the CBD traffic and roundabouts on the council's Your Say Warrnambool site. The council stated that the results would be relayed to the community. My question is, when will these results be released to the community?
Mayor, if we could just have both questions and I'll answer them in one part.
Well, sorry, Okay, so that being the case, with 12 months having elapsed, why has it taken so long?
Mayor, the response to that is that Council engaged an engineering consultant to undertake a traffic impact assessment on the CBD traffic movements as well, and that work has been delayed on multiple occasions due to the pandemic restrictions. The work has recommenced now and further pedestrian surveys have been completed, both during the weekdays and on weekend, and is intended that the results of the investigation will be presented to Council early in the new financial year.
Thank you. Just for clarification.
No, that's it. The question is asked and answered. Thanks, Mr Kelson.
Thanks, Robert.
Councillors, we're now moving to the officers' report section of the agenda. I'd like to remind you of the speaking times allocated for each item during the meeting, as outlined in our governance rules. The mover of a motion may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes to open the debate, and then a further 2 minutes later on to exercise their right of reply and to close the debate. Any other councillor, including the seconder, may speak for or against the motion for no more than 3 minutes. To assist councillors with time limits, you'll hear a signal when you have reached the maximum time allowed. I would ask you to respect the limits, please. Move on to item 7 on the agenda, the Harbour Reference Group, 7.1. The purpose of this report is to review the Warrnambool Harbour Reference Group in accordance with its terms of reference. The Warrnambool Harbour Reference Group, the group is an advisory group to the Council, which was established in 2014 as part of the Harbour Master Plan development. Terms of reference for the group were due for review on the 1st of January 2022. Upon review of the terms of reference, it was determined that the purpose of the group no longer aligns with the purpose of its establishment or the current council plan. The Warrnambool Harbour Reference Group has made a valuable contribution to support the delivery of the Harbour Master Plan and related works and activities of council in and around the harbour. After assessing the ongoing requirement for the group, it has, however, been concluded that the initial need for the group has been realised, and it's recommended that the Harbour Reference Group be discontinued. Mayors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. I would like to move that the motion, which includes items 1, 2, 3 and 4, as per the Council's officer's recommendation, be accepted. Thank you, Mayor Ziegler.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Blaine. Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. As much as I am disappointed the Harbour Reference Group is to be discontinued, I believe it has served its purpose with the completion of the Harbour Master Plan and securing funding for the redevelopment of the boat ramp. In the near future, I would like to see a new reference group formed until the title of the Foreshore Reference Group encompassing the area between Logan's Beach and Thunder Point. I strongly believe this is an area in particular is Warrnambool's #1 asset attraction and all year round, and should have strong community input and representation. Thank you, Mayor Ziegler.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Blaine, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. I do think it's important. I don't think this is the end of the master plan. I think this is stage 1 with the safer boat launching facility. Stage 2's really trying to address the surge, and stage 3 is the full foreshore precinct. And I think it's important to remember this is only, this is really the start of where we're going to be trying to go over the next 10, 20 years with our harbour. I think it's important to realise that it doesn't mean, the termination of this group doesn't mean nothing will be happening down at the harbour, or that there won't be community input into the future directions of the foreshore. The reference group, which I've been a member of, has done a great job in achieving its terms of reference and doing what it was actually set out to do, which was safe, which one of the primary things was safe for launching facilities. We have work starting on the new, at the boat ramp, and we have seen improvements going on down at the foreshore, like the new cleaning table. The capping and the rail damage of the actual breakwater is also being repaired, as well as the lower sections are getting the boards replaced as well. It's a credit to the group and all the members for their valuable input since 2014. The surge is something that we hope that we'll continue to work on, and I think it's important that anything that's done in relation to the foreshore will have very strong community engagement. And I think it'll be good because it'll open it up to more than just our group, it'll open up to all foreshore users. Looking at the future, if there is a need that arises as we continue to move through the plan to establish a new group with new objectives, we can always look at that, or we can continue to consult in new and innovative ways in order to deliver the best asset we can for Warrnambool. So I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Are there any other councillors? Councillor Jelly.
Yes, reiterate both what Councillor Taylor and Councillor Blaine have said. It's been a very important working group, and one thing we've got to remember, the majority of the people in those groups are volunteers, and they've given their time to have their professional input, their thoughts over those years. To looking at improving our foreshore, and I know they've had the best interests of that area at heart, and there's been some great things come out of it. So I'd like to thank them, like all our other reference and advisory group members that are volunteers, thank them for that, their input, time, and congratulate them.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly, very important. Are there any other councillors wish to? Thank you, Councillor Gaspaliaris.
I'd just like to thank the group for their contribution and expertise. I'd also like to make note of the following within the agenda, that Council have also established processes to support community engagement in any strategic planning undertaken, which will allow users and stakeholders to contribute through Council engagement processes. So this to me means that while one consulting phase now comes to an end with the Harbour Reference Group discontinuing, it also begins a new phase which will encompass all foreshore stakeholders in future engagement and consultation, and I think this will be an important step for the long term. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gaspaliaris. I would like to make a comment myself that I would endorse wholeheartedly Councillor Jelly's comments, thanks to the participants and stakeholders in the Harbour Reference Group. Without their input and skilled knowledge, a lot of what has gone on wouldn't possibly have occurred in the same manner. It's worth noting that there are several options available to ensure that information can continue to be provided to key stakeholders, groups and individuals. These include a mailing list or email to enable valuable information to be distributed in a short time frame, and a control group that would consist of key agencies such as DELP, Department of Transport, Better Boating, Sea Rescue, and a representative on of the mooring lessees. It's important that such stakeholders be kept appraised of what's going on, because certainly the work in the harbour has not finished. And we've made an acknowledgement that it's not just the harbour section of the bay, as Councillor Taylor has intimated, and it needs to be signalled that there will be further input sought from the community about very important aspects of one of our most prized features for Warrnambool. So I'll now put the item to the vote. There being no further speakers, unless Councillor Taylor would like to speak before closing the debate.
No, thank you, Mayor Ziegler.
Thank you. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion's carried unanimously. So item 7.2, activities and initiatives. Agenda page number 8. This report provides information on the progress in achieving the activities and initiatives, the ANIs, set down for 2021-2022 as part of the council plan and budget process. This report provides council and the community with an update. With an update in the progress of actions across council's functional areas. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? There being no questions, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I move that the activities and initiatives 2021 to 2022, October to December, quarter 2 be received.
Thank you. Is there a second of the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's exciting to see some of the initiatives that have gone on over the last quarter and the breadth of work that Council's been doing. Some of the important things I'd like to point out would be at Action Code 1.4.9, it's on page 10, the increased engagement of youth and young people. I think this is really, really important. It's good to see the Youth Council has been having fortnightly meetings, and I really hope that us as a council can meet with this group of young citizens of Warrnambool in order to really understand what their needs are moving forward. Another one I'd like to point out is 1.5.1, the Lake Potobe Building Better Regions program, the water play space, which is underway, and it's exciting to see it'll be complete by September 2022. One other thing for the future of our city was at 3.2.4, the plan for development and implementation of the precinct structure plans. It's exciting to see as we continue to grow towards the east of Aberline Road that there is planning underway there for the future growth of our city, which will hopefully be our next big building boom. And also it's exciting to see that we have received funding for the Woodford Bushfield structure plan, and that'll shape the area, future of this special area for Warrnambool and how it'll be used and utilised by the residents there. One other one which I did think was quite exciting was the changes to the Dharma, which was Action Code 3.4.1. There were new jobs added to try and help the region's skill shortage in childcare, aged care and aquaculture, which are definitely areas we need more support in. And 4.1.7, the commencement of planning for neighbourhood community infrastructure assets. New data on infrastructure is going to be, community infrastructure is going to be especially important in this period we're in Warrnambool with sustained growth. We want to be building the community, in my view, we want to be building the community infrastructure for further growth and not having to go back and retrofit. So this planning is going to be really important to make sure we're a connected 20-minute city into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Just quickly, I'd like to say that I do appreciate the work that has been going on in quarter 2, because obviously there have been some COVID limitations and implications with that. I wanted to just highlight a couple of the items from the report in item 1.4.1, the Principal Pedestrian Network document, which is currently out for public comment on the Your Say Warrnambool website, and submissions close on March 28th. And then item 3.1.3, grow engagement with local businesses across the municipality. I'd like to just extend an invitation. If you are a business owner that's not currently engaging regularly with council, or you wish just to be kept informed, I'd encourage you to call or email Warrnambool City Council, add your contact details and stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Jelly?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It was a very interesting report, and I think we're all touching on various things, but there were some great things there, and it was tough because we were still under some various COVID health directives, and restrictions during the period. So many of our services, community programs and objectives were still able to operate though. They thought out of the square and got round a lot of things to be able to support the people in need in the community. Support of our senior members through programs at Archie and, as Councillor Blaine indicated, through the youth, for their mental health and wellbeing support and the activities there with the Youth Council. I think that's a really important thing. We've been able to continue. One thing that really sits highly with me is to continue to deliver the Indigenous language programs for the 3 and 4 year olds at the early years kindergarten programs, which is fabulous, and I know they enjoy that very much. And during the time, that second quarter, the West Warrnambool Neighbourhood House is just an amazing place. They coordinated 1.8 tonnes of food to be delivered to vulnerable families in the area. Now, that was a big ask because there were people that weren't able to work because they might have had COVID and had to stay home. Funds weren't there. They needed that support. So a big tip for that, the group out there that run that. They do some great work and we need to hear even more about that. But they've provided information and support at a difficult time, and none of this would have happened in all these areas without the dedicated staff and volunteers that are committed to their community.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Councillor Arnott?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would just like to make mention of our planning department. I think it's really good to see that council are supporting initiatives that are fostering and ongoing development and investment with industries that underpin Warrnambool's economic strengths. I'd also like to mention that the planning is well underway for a new Warrnambool economic development and investment strategy. This is going to help us with grant and funding opportunities, and we'll be able to explore them better. It will be an important document because it will ensure that we are on the correct path to facilitate investment in growth areas across the Warrnambool municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Any further speakers? Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. I'd just like to refer to item code 1.31. I'm very pleased to see the progress by the council officers through the endorsement of the Healthy Warrnambool Practice Model in partnership with stakeholders in the 5 priority areas of physical health, social and emotional well-being, prevention of family violence and reduced harm from alcohol and other drugs, and finally increased resilience and safety from impacts of climate change. Because of COVID-19 implications, the past 2 years have placed an enormous strain on these 5 priorities, and it is good to see the council making progress and taking initiative in this area. Thank you, Ms Ziegler.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any further councillors wish to have a word? There being no further speakers, Councillor Blaine, you wish to speak before the closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor.
I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those Against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.3 is a planning application for a convenience restaurant, KFC. This report recommends that a notice of decision to grant a permit be issued for planning permit application PP 2021-0197 for buildings and works in the construction and display of business identification signage in association with the construction of a convenience restaurant within the North Point Shopping Centre at 1/72 Mortlake Road, Warrnambool. There's quite a number of recommendations in the agenda. I will ask any councillors, are there questions on this item before I seek a motion? There being no questions, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. I'd like to move a motion to grant a notice of decision permit under the relevant provisions of the Warrnambool Planning Scheme in respect of the land known and described as Lot 1 TP 889015N 172 Mortlake Road, subject to the 14 conditions as per the Council Officer's recommendation be accepted. Thank you, Ms. Ziegler.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there a second to that motion? Councillor Arnott?
I'll second the motion with debate.
Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. Item number 2 of the parking management plan gravely concerns me of the queuing at the entrance of the convenience restaurant, in addition to the extension of the queuing in the current car park. I think this would be a great inconvenience to the traffic flow and to shoppers of the North Point Shopping Centre. This traffic and parking management plan must be approved to the satisfaction of the responsible authority before it will be endorsed and a permit issued. Thank you, Ms. Ziegler.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you. The site for this application was earmarked for a convenience restaurant in 2004. Since that time, we have seen significant growth throughout the North Warrnambool area, growth that is still occurring at a rapid rate. Along with the growth also comes a demand on road use. Mortlake Road is the main arterial from North Warrnambool and outer-lying areas. And anyone travelling mornings or late afternoon can attest to significant traffic along Mortlake Road at that time. There is also to be considered the location of the fire station and accessibility to and from there. I am all in favour of new business and investment for Warrnambool. A new business will create employment for many. Our on-site visit to the proposed convenience restaurant, I took particular notice of the traffic flow. The car park is privately owned by the shopping centre and therefore is not council's concern. However, having observed banked up traffic onto the highway from the existing KFC, I am not satisfied that this will not occur on Mortlake Road and cause even more congestion that will inconvenience many. I therefore do not support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Okosh.
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. It is good to see that more businesses are open in town. But with this particular item, the location is a problem. For the proposal of the new KFC at 1/72 Mortlake Road, for some reasons, could see one of them, as Councillor Arnott mentioned, that the traffic is a problem in that location, because Mortlake Road is the only road leading to the town from northern part, and you have huge population starting from Woodfoot and Bushfield coming to Warrnambool. So having additional traffic will not help the situation that is actually exists at the moment. Warrnambool is expanding, and the expansion of Warrnambool is towards north. It's going big there, so it could have been better if the location is not actually the Mortlake Road. It could be shifted to other places such that the other population there will be benefiting also from because you have the KFC in town, which is actually not far from the one that is going to be built at Mortlake Road. So in this, I will not support the planning permit.
Thank you, Councillor Cox.
Thank you.
Councillor Jelly?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm along the same thought process as Councillor Arnott and Councillor Acoish. North Warrnambool's the growth corridor there, right out to Bushfield, Woodford, and then going the other way, it brings you into the CBD and down to the beach and all the other areas. That area has significantly expanded since 2004. When North Point Shopping Centre was designed. It's a major carriageway in that area, and there's a lot of traffic. The impact of siting a restaurant that has a drive-through service is will within an already busy site would impact the safety of those who are shopping in the shopping centre, and a huge impact on the traffic congestion. I'm not against the restaurant itself. I think the drive-through component is a big issue. Again, like Councillor Arnott, I encourage business and growth, and that's what we want in the city, and I congratulate the people looking to do this. You know, it brings us employment and a lot of different things, but I feel that this particular site is not the place for it in Warrnambool. So I won't be
Thank you, Councillor Jelly.
supporting it.
There are other councillors wish to speak. Councillor Blaine?
I'm actually supportive of the recommendations put forward by the officers here. When the shopping complex was first built, it was always planned to have a restaurant on this part of land, as far as I understand. There is a need for a second KFC in Warrnambool. And look at the traffic issues that are happening on the highway during the peak periods. Currently, I think a second restaurant is important in order to ease the congestion on the Princess Highway. When councillors talk about supporting business, I think it's important to remember that if it's able to be done under our current planning scheme, why shouldn't we be supporting it? Just because we don't want to discourage investment in our town. So I think it's important that every opportunity that comes, we should be looking very closely at supporting it. The car park is private land, as has been said, and one of the key conditions to this permit is the applicant still will have to show council before it's actually granted how the drive-through will have an impact on the car park, positive or negative. That's not a given, and it's not a given from voting this through tonight that this permit will go ahead without that work. If this can't be shown, the permit won't be granted. It's a very important clause in this permit, and it's to make sure that not only has the traffic not disadvantaged, but none of the other traders are disadvantaged by making parking or traffic flow harder in this centre. I think it's important, and this is a major reason why I think we should be supporting this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Paspaliaris?
Thank you, Mayor. I would probably respond to Councillor Blaine's observation of the queuing at the current KFC, whereby the main highway can probably tolerate some level of queuing, being that there are 3 or so lanes there. From my point of view, 11 objections is significant. I don't think that Mortlake Road has got the same capacity to tolerate queuing, really, of any description. The Delegate Planning Assessment Report states the application has been the subject of lengthy consultation between the applicant and council. After initial concerns were raised with the drive-through area associated with the convenience restaurant, minor changes were made to the plans. The applicant has been advised that there are still concerns with the way in which the existing car parking area associated with the North Point shopping centre would be impacted by the location of the drive-through associated with the restaurant. It is considered that queuing at the entrance to the drive-through will obstruct other vehicles seeking to park and circulate within the car parking area in order to park or exit when visiting other commercial tenancies within the shopping centre. These are significant concerns raised. In addition, the applicant's traffic report conducted by ESR Transport Planning concludes that with regard to traffic impacts, development traffic can be absorbed by the local road network without significant impact to efficient traffic flow. I would strongly dispute this, considering how generally difficult the Mortlake Road entry and exit area to the shopping centre is for some drivers to negotiate. Further along Mortlake Road, the question of safety and traffic flow is regularly brought up with regards to the Donovans Road and BP entry-exit area. I cannot see how the development traffic can in fact be absorbed by the local road network when that existing road network already has faults and issues. So I cannot support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. My own comments relate specifically to items that have already been mentioned to other councillors. The car park itself is a very congested and a difficult car park to negotiate at the best of times. The queuing is an issue. The area is congested, there's no question. Mortlake Road already suffers problems with traffic, and I feel that this can only compound the problems. I would also like to make a comment that while the planners have made the point that many of their aspects for the application are completely legal, I take note of the concerns of the objectors and find that much of it isn't right. It might be legal, but it's not necessarily right, nor does it take into consideration the rights of the objectors who live there, quite beyond the legal aspects of this. Is there any further debate? No further debate. I would ask Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Ms Ziegler.
I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Taylor and Councillor Blaine. All those against? Five to 2 against. Motion is lost. Is there another item, another motion about this item that any councillor would like to put forward? There being no further item? No? Someone needs to move that there are grounds for refusal. Okay. Sorry. Mr. Payton, has this been circulated to councillors? Pardon? It has been? Okay. Will councillors move the grounds for refusal? This has been circulated to all of us. The application is refused pursuant to section 65 of the Planning Environment Act 1987 on the following grounds: that the proposal is inconsistent with the relevant objectives and strategies of the planning policy framework, including clause 15.01-1S and clause 15.01-2S. The proposal is contrary to clause 65.01 of the Warrnambool Planning Scheme and will adversely impact the current operation of the transport system and will therefore not result in an orderly planning outcome.
Just a point of order, Mayor Ziegler. When was that circulated to councillors?
Councillor, Mr. Payton.
Through you, Mayor, I believe it was Thursday. Last
where is this alternative motion then that you have put forward?
We're asking for an alternative motion from the floor, as I understand it. This is all a bit irregular, but we'll follow the procedure. Yep.
So essentially, the developer or the application has no output.
Thank you.
It's sitting there, so because they've rejected it, they need to move it grounds for refusal. So we have something to give to the developer in terms of their planning application.
I'll explain it as been put to me. Because there has been a refusal of this particular notice to give a notice of decision, there is no decision. We have to therefore bring a motion from the floor, the councillors, so that there is grounds for refusal, and we need a councillor to move a motion eliciting the grounds for refusal.
Just another point of order then, there is no motion from the floor at this point in time and the motion's come from an officer, so...
I'm asking for a motion.
No, but the motion has come from an officer, the one that you're talking about.
I'm asking for a motion from a councillor to that effect.
Yeah, but that's a motion from an officer, it's not a motion from a councillor.
No, I'm asking for a motion from a councillor that gives us grounds for refusal.
Mr Mayor, I still don't understand this email that's been put to us, and I would like, and I think we need further clarification of where this goes. I'm not happy to vote on anything here, knowing that there's such a misunderstanding. I'm sorry.
And I'm ready to abstain as well, because this should have been well before tonight.
I don't understand. Well, there was an email here sent here.
If they want some clarification, that this causes to lay this item on the table and brought back to the next council meeting.
Okay, the advice I've received is that because we've not given a decision, that this item will be laid on the table and be brought back to the next council meeting until the next council meeting. Thank you. Well, that was interesting. Item 7.4 on the agenda, which is the Dart and Marlin application to amend permit PP 2015-0185, agenda page 18. This report recommends that Council resolve to issue a notice of decision, NOD, to grant an amendment to permit PP 2015-0185 to vary a liquor licence to general and packaged liquor, increase the licensed area, extend trading hours and display business identification signage at 216 to 218 Timor Street, Warrnambool. Councillors, are there any questions on this particular item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I move that we grant the permit as per the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Councillor Arnott? Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'm happy to support this planning permit amendment. I think it's great to see a business that is continuing to invest just in our CBD. They're not moving their liquor licence out any further than anyone else in that street, so it'll be in line with in that part of the CBD, so it'll be in line with other venues within the CBD. I think the amenity and the noise from the venue with the music condition is really important to point out in this permit. There will have to be a noise assessment after 6 months to make sure that the venue is complying, especially for the amenity of the other businesses and houses around this business. There's also been, with the extension of the liquor licence, there also has been a lowering of the patron limit from 250 down to 200, which fits in line with the size of the venue, so I'm happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. As Councillor Blaine has said, there will need to be a noise assessment done after 6 months, and there is no doubt that the people living close by would be affected by noise, so that is very important that that is going to occur. It does bring it in line, the permits, with other businesses in the surrounding area. I will say the only thing I do have a question about is whether they need to be able to sell alcohol, packaged alcohol on the street, especially when there is alcohol directly across the road that's freely available. That would be my only concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Jelly?
Yes, I reiterate both my colleagues' sentiments there. It will be important for the proprietors need to ensure the noise and impact on the neighbouring properties is adhered to. And I too have an issue with it about the takeaway liquor that they're wanting to provide there. I don't think there's necessarily a need for that, as there are other hotels and bottle shops in the area that do that themselves. So yes, I don't think that's necessary, but it's part of their permit.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. Areas of concern raised by the objectors are very well covered by the conditions 6, 7, 8 and 9, and in particular the emission of noise and artificial light, the sale of the premises liquor sales and the consumption of liquor outside the premises times are to be strictly adhered to. And finally, the conditions upon amplified music must be followed. Thank you, Ms. Ziegler.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Are there any other councillors wish to? Councillor Koch?
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. Mayor, I have concern of increasing of the trading hours until 1 a.m. With the noise that is occurring during that time. And to come back after 6 months to assess whether it will continue or not, I don't see it's really a good step to be taken. In this regard, I will not support the application.
Thank you, Councillor Akosh. There being no further speakers, Councillor Blaine, would you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor.
I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Motion is carried, 6-1. Item 7.5 on the agenda, 61 Grieve Street 2 lot subdivision. This report presents the draft recommendation for planning application PP 2021-0054, which recommends that a notice of decision to grant a permit be issued for a 2-lot subdivision at 61 Grieve Street, Warrnambool. Councillors, are there any questions about this item before I seek a motion? Being no questions. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Arnott.
I would like to move that a notice of decision to grant a permit be issued for a 2-lot subdivision at 61 Grieve Street, Warrnambool.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Taylor. Thank you. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to make a comment, firstly, that there were 7 objections, all signed on the one submission. The objections to the planning application centre mainly around congestion and parking, and I acknowledge that the width of Dixon Street does present some challenges as far as accessibility goes. However, this is the type of building that we need in infill in the CBD area. I think this is an important development, and actually if it goes par for the course that parking and off-street parking is part of what happens when you have this type of dwelling. So I actually support the application. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. Matters raised in the objections are not satisfactory grounds to refuse the 2-lot subdivision, as vehicular access in Dixon Street is considered to be appropriate and car parking will be able to be provided on site, and the way in which large vehicles such as emergency appliances and waste trucks will not change as a result of the subdivision. Thank you, Ms. Ziegler.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. My general comments on this application would be that at this time the subdivision seems appropriate, with lot 2 totalling 409 square metres. Obviously there'd be speculation on what might happen to the larger lot 1 in future, but that's not up for debate or decision tonight. So based on what's in front of us, I do support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Are there any other councillors wish to make a comment? No, Councillor Arnott, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor Ziegler.
I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? All those against the motion? Motion is carried, 6-1. Item 7.6, Middle Island Project Committee Appointment of Community Representative. The purpose of this report is to appoint the community representative to the Middle Island Project Committee. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Being no questions, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. I'd like to move that the motion to appoint Zoe Britton as the community representative on the Middle Island Project Committee per officer's recommendation be accepted. Thank you, Mayor Ziegler.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. Zoe has had 13 years' experience in tourism and is currently undertaking a PhD at Deacon Warrnambool campus and has very sound understanding of environmental impacts and land management and very sound understanding of the cultural importance of places to traditional owners. Thank you, Mayor Ziegler.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will, just to say that I think that Zoe is a great choice and she seems suitably qualified. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion? My own comments are that my judgment on the appointee or proposed appointee, Zoe Britton, are that she comes with a fairly impressive CV and I have no fears in actually supporting the recommendation. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to close the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor Ziegler.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried unanimously. Item 7.7, Deacon Link Feasibility Study. This report provides information on the feasibility of a third pedestrian and cycling priority connection between Deacon in East Warrnambool through to Central Warrnambool and the rail trail. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I move that Council acknowledges the feasibility study and considers funding the various stages of the project's design in future budgets.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Arnott? What is... Yes, sorry. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ziegler. I think this is a very exciting study and I really do believe that a rail trail would be a great option for our city. A link between Deacon and our city is desperately needed, especially with the growth that we're seeing and especially with students. If we want to encourage more of them to come to our city, not all of them use cars, so being able to get to our CBD through different measures is incredibly important. It's important because it's also important as well because encouraging students to our city and encouraging less car usage are some of the big overarching principles that we're really trying to push for our net zero city. The track would comprise, from what I understand, a lot of informal paths that are already along the rail trail. Council would go along and would be formalising these. There are some issues around some key intersections, but these things would be worked through in the design phase. Looking at it as a staged design, this would give Chancel the ability to be able to spread the cost over a number of years and a number of budgets to give a really impressive finished product. It feeds into so many strategies of Council, the active Warrnambool. I'm sure it'll be something that'll be front of mind and considered into future budgets, so I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to speak to the motion?
There's a lot of positives about a project like this. The benefits would be far-reaching to the wider community, and we talk about things like our health, our well-being, our positive outcomes for students at Deacon Uni, and it would have the ability to change the way people live and work. It also will be important that we are ready to explore funding opportunities when they come along. So I fully support this piece of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Are there any other councillors who wish to... Thank you, Councillor Gilly.
Yes, support this exciting staged project, and it is a staged project, so the funding can be stretched out over time and look at different budget proposals. I think, again, the health and wellbeing of the community, the link to Deacon, connecting our communities, but I'd also like to see this in other parts of the city as well as we grow and everything, you know, Bushfield, Woodford, all those areas, there's a lot of links, Dennington further, there's a lot of links there that could very well be looked at along these lines. I know there's a lot of other things out there, a lot of footpaths and crossings and things that also need looking at, but I think as a stage project this is very important for the community.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Are there any other councillors who wish to make comment? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. I'd just like to endorse my fellow councillors' comments regarding this, and I believe the rail train option of linking Deacon University with the city would be a very exciting development to connect East Warrnambool to the city. 80% of the land along the Deacon rail link is owned by VicTrack, and continued development with VicTrack would be extremely significant to see this project succeed, along with the budget allocations and permits over the coming years. Thank you, Mayor Ziegler.
To Councillor Taylor. Councillor Paspaliaris.
I think that this is a very exciting project, and I look forward to there being an eventual link between Deacon and Central Warrnambool and beyond, but also perhaps at some point extending out through to Allensford as well. I think that the aim of this study is obviously to try and get funding for certain parts of the path as that funding becomes available, as well as council's own contributions. It also gives council scope to consider what the challenges will be, and there obviously are many, but also what the ultimate success might be as well. If the conditions were able to be met eventually, the pathway would be such a valuable transport link, as well as for health and recreation that the other councillors have noted as well.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. I'll make some comment myself to the effect that it's worth noting that 5,600 approximately households will have access within 800 metres of this proposed path. And it's also worth noting that council won't be funding all of it. There'll be efforts made throughout the life of the development to source funding from somewhere else. We will be making contributions according to the budgets, but the progress of the building of the pathway will be dependent on us receiving funding. So it won't be something that we have to find all the money for. So it's worth making that noted for those who are worried about where the money's coming from. There being no further speakers, Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.8, Waste Strategy Adoption. This report provides feedback to Council following the community consultation process and seeks a resolution of Council to adopt the Waste Strategy 2021 to 2025. Council, is there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? There being no questions, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I move that Council adopts the Waste Strategy 2021-2025.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Taylor. Thank you. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. We're right at the start of moving towards net zero waste by 2040. This plan outlines the behavioural changes that are going to be encouraged through council programs in sorting and the way that we deal with our waste. As I've said before, we need to be working towards a bigger scale a bigger scale with our waste in order to maximise efficiency when it comes to disposal processes into the future if we truly want to be net zero. It does seem strange by offering a more economical solution we may find it does seem strange, but by offering a more economical solution, I am hopeful that we may find our neighbouring councils will see what we'll be doing and be wanting to partner with us in order to deal with waste for the region and make this a real regional hub. This would be a huge positive out of this strategy. By stopping it being waste and relying on better recovery is probably the other key thing we have to be looking at, so that things that we are putting in the waste can be reused and recycled. And creating that circular economy with waste items will be key. This recovery is the recovery is not going to be better than disposal. It will be better than disposal because we want to be able to reuse what we're using here already in the region. Look, I'd still like to see weekly domestics and recycling pickups, just because I don't think we've hit the point where we have reduced our waste enough at this stage in order to keep them as fortnightly. But as we continue to move forward and work towards these plans, I think it's important not only for our city but also our planet. So I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Ziegler. 10 submissions were received from the community consultation that did not necessitate any change to the document as previously presented. A great deal of change has occurred in the waste industry and a large number of actions have been completed, such as the rollout of the FOGO service. As a result of the recycling crisis, our council took bold steps to improve the quality and value of recyclables, and our council was the first in Victoria to devise the 4-bin system, and which now has been mandated by the state government. Council was one of the first councils in Victoria to adopt a municipal FOGO service and fortnightly garbage collection to reduce waste volumes and waste to landfill. The council officers are to be congratulated on their efforts. Thank you, Mayor Ziegler.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Are there any other councillors who wish to make comment on this? Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris.
I think a couple of points that I have extracted that I think are important is just in terms of the waste strategy objectives. Number 14, ensure nighttime curbside collection is fit for purpose. As far as I'm aware, we are one of very few municipalities that collect late at night or very, very early in the morning. I think as the glass bin has been introduced, that is another sort of compounding factor in terms of noise at night. So I think that is something that I will keep a close eye on in terms of the revisiting of that aspect. I am excited to see the eventual adoption of the statewide container deposit scheme, which should be introduced in 2023, coming from South Australia, where it's, as far as I'm aware, always been there, certainly in my lifetime. That is a very welcome change, and I think that'll do a lot to motivate recycling. And one of the submissions, the responses to this strategy when put out for public consultation, did mention something about partnerships between council and some of the very big retailers such as Target and the like. I think Aldi was also mentioned, whereby they do produce some waste in the way of, say, plastic, soft plastics and plastic bags, and so whether council has a role to play in advocating for increased disposal bins, such as the red cycle that is already present in Coles and Woolworths. I think that is certainly something to consider as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Are there any other councillors who wish to make comment? There being no further speakers, Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor.
I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried unanimously. Item 7.9, there being two councillors who have declared conflict of interest, I now give you leave to retire from the room. (7.9) TAC funded Botanic LATM project. This report provides the final draft of the TAC funded Botanic Precinct Local Area Traffic Management LATM plan before it proceeds to wider community feedback. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine.
I move that Council adopts the updated Botanic Local Area Traffic Management Plan, that Council seek comment from key stakeholder groups in the wider community when the various elements of the plan are implemented, and that Council continues to accept feedback from the wider community once the adopted plan is released.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Is there a seconder to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, please, Mayor. This was a really exciting piece of work, and it's the first one I think that we've done in Warrnambool. A lot of the work and the recommendations in this plan come from focus groups, so it's good to see it's actually going out to the wider community for feedback. I think this piece of work is important in deciding the future road treatments in the area, not just for cars but pedestrians and cyclists, especially when this encompasses so many schools. So I'm hoping this will make it safer for a lot of the students. I hope we can do more of these local area traffic management plans in order to fill the strategic gaps in the road treatments in Warrnambool. It was really good to see that the TAC provided funding for this plan. I thank them for that. This plan actually follows the Botanic Precinct, which does encompass a lot of schools like Emmanuel, St Joe's. It's also got St John of God's Hospital, Aqua Zone. The consultation did yield some very important issues like student movements and making sure kids, especially at school times, it was safe moving in and out of school. I think that with the strategic work here and the strategic direction done with this, I think it'll be critical in the future as we go looking for road funding in order to implement as much of this plan, as many of these treatments as we can, to make this area as safe as we can for all users, whether they're drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, and especially our students. So I'm really happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I concur with everything that Councillor Blaine has said. This area all around is notoriously bad for traffic and pedestrian and bike riders' safety. Great to see that the TAC has fully funded it. That's a win for us. And I think, as Councillor Blaine has said, it's important that we embrace this strategy and for ongoing funding and trying to get some of this plan into action. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Are there any other councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. As Councillor Blaine and Councillor Arnott have already mentioned, there's just obviously so much happening within a certain area in this particular precinct, and so I guess people are very careful to a large degree in terms of the way that the traffic flows or doesn't, the way that people look out for pedestrians and especially students. So I think to sort of formalise strategy and planning for this area is super important. I like, obviously, that the next steps will be communicating with stakeholders as well. So obviously, as Councillor Blaine has said, there was a lot of community engagement with focus groups for this particular plan. It's needed it for some time because there are so many different aspects to it: schools, hospitals, aquazone, parking, traffic. I think it's a very important project to improve safety for this particular area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pascaliaris. Any other councillor wishes to make a comment? I'd like to make the comment that, if anything, this plan hasn't been able to extend far enough because of the limitations that are subject on the highway. The highway itself can't come into consideration with this because it's funded from a different body. I think that as it stands, it's a great project. It's long been overdue and it's something that we desperately need. And as Councillor Blaine said, I think that I'm more than happy to support the motion. So, Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried 5-0. Thank you. We'll await the return of the other councillors before we resume. Thank you. Item 7.10, Statement of Commitment to Gender Equality. The report provides background to the Gender Equity Act 2020, makes a recommendation that Council resolve to commit to gender equality through a statement of commitment to gender equality. Council, is there any questions on this item before I seek the motion? There being no other questions, I'll seek a motion. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Arnott, what is your motion?
I'd like to move that the Council resolve to commit to gender equality through a statement of commitment to gender equality as per attachment 1.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Pascaliaris. Thank you. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would, thank you. In 2016, the Royal Commission into Family Violence showed that Victoria needs to address gender inequality to all forms of violence against women. The Gender Equality Act passed through Parliament in February 2020. Under the Act, Warrnambool City Council obligations are to develop and implement a gender equality action plan, which includes results of a workplace gender audit and strategies for achieving workplace gender equality. These are the key statistics on violence against women. On average, 1 woman a week is murdered by her current or former partner. 1 in 3 women has experienced physical violence since the age of 15. 1 in 5 women has experienced sexual violence since the age of 15. 1 in 3 women has experienced physical and or sexual violence perpetrated by a man they know. And on it goes. It doesn't stop there. So when we look at the People Matters survey, which audits the gender equality by the Warrnambool City Council, it does show that there is some work that needs to be done to ensure greater gender equality. So when I look at the Gender Equality Action Plan indicators, I can see that there is a problem of sexual harassment and bullying in the workplace. No one should have to go to work with thoughts of fear of how they will be treated. Far too often we hear of the devastating effects this sort of behaviour has on its victims. These behaviours need to be called out. I urge anyone witnessing or experiencing it to speak out. I want to see this problem addressed. I want the leaders of this organisation to step up and embrace this gender equity statement. Let us be the leaders in this field. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Paspaliaris.
Yes, thank you. As Councillor Arnott has expressed, the key statistics are frightening with relation to this issue. What I am pleased about is the Workplace Gender Equity Action Committee, which is made up of staff members from across the organisation, has been working on delivering this plan with support from its Croxford Consulting and Women's Health and Wellbeing Bowen Southwest. I think this gives a lot of ownership to people in the workplace with this type of plan. So I absolutely support this statement and this motion. I think that it's great for an organisation like Warrnambool City Council to step up, to acknowledge that there are issues and to try and work on improving them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Are there any other councillors? Councillor Jelly.
Thank you. Again, reiterate what our two colleagues have said, rather than repeat it. We've got very similar thoughts. Everyone should have equal access to opportunity in the workplace and in life general. I hope that Warrnambool City Council can be leaders, can take action and not just be words. Like Councillor Paspaliaris, I'm glad that the committee has been formed within council to work through this, but I want to ensure, and I hope that management, senior management especially within the Warrnambool City Council, acknowledge this very important piece of work, and that I want staff that work here to feel that they can be heard and not be afraid to speak up no matter what it's about. It's so important that they feel comfortable, and that we have to give the absolute correct messaging and actions that sometimes has had not been recognised and has caused a previous negative workplace culture. That needs to change, this needs to change, and it's very important to female and male, equality for all regardless of gender. Thank you.
Councillor Jelly. Any other councillors wish to make comment? Thank you, Councillor Blaine.
I wholeheartedly endorse the other three councillors' comments. I'd just like to add, so this is a part of the Gender Equity Act 2020, and it does apply to all public sector. I do personally support this statement, and I believe no one should be discriminated against for their gender or race or any other factor. Everyone should be able to be seen for their performance and what they bring to any role within an organisation. And I want to see Warrnambool City Council as a leader in gender equity, or equity in general through its entire workforce. Warrnambool City Council has its issues, and like any large organisation, especially when it comes to gender equity, and we have a lot of work to do in order to bridge this gap. But if we want to be seen as leaders in the Warrnambool community, why are we only doing this through a statement and not releasing our gender equity action plan? It's interesting to note that this report, there are only issues that face the Australian public sector, nothing about the challenges that are faced in our own backyard here in Warrnambool. I feel it's important as a council, we have to focus on what we have control over, start small, the big changes, they will come. Change on these issues, it takes time, and the gaps in wages and occupation have been built over a considerable amount of time, and it is time that we need in order to undo this. Without informing not just the Warrnambool community, but Warrnambool businesses on what we're doing, how we're doing it, the results, how we are achieving and how we are faring, how can we truly lead Warrnambool to gender equity? While I am in support of this statement and the message it puts out, I'm concerned that without the actions, this could be just lip service to fill a legislative requirement. We are a public organisation, and without a clear plan, with constant reviews, measurable results, will we be actually able to achieve what has been put forward in this plan? There are areas that have done well and there are spaces that need improvement. But I do wonder, how can we be a leader when we aren't showing the work that we are doing in our backyard and just putting out a statement instead? I find this really disappointing. Open and transparent is what I believe we should be. Truly leading by showing not only our weaknesses but our strengths. That is a true sign of leadership. I've seen the plan. I do question if it is a policy to fill a legislative requirement or is it a policy to drive change. This is a policy that was created by the organisation. I think it shows a pipe dream without a real plan or actions in order to get to where we propose. I suppose this feeds into the idea that if we're proud and we want to make change, I asked about releasing it Monday night and we were told, oh, we don't have to, that was the advice. But when it was first shown in December, this plan was going to be released. So if we want to create change, why hide it? We should be proud that we're working towards having a safe and effective workforce and culture, especially when it comes to gender equity. And it should be accepted as a basic right when you come to work that you feel safe and valued. Creating change and new culture starts with small steps, as I've said before. If council wants to lead a generational change, we need to show what we're doing. Everyone who goes to work deserves to feel safe and by making a real valued contribution to what they do. Words won't make the change, and I hope that our actions don't get lost in this statement, but I'm happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blown. It's worth acknowledging, and I endorse the comments of all of my colleagues most heartily. But commitment to this equality plan comes with responsibilities. The Council must ensure that the plan is adequately funded on an ongoing basis. We must ensure strategic oversight of the plan and be satisfied that the plan's actions are moving to achieve the state's outcome, the stated outcomes. We have to be able to acknowledge that our stated plan is actually what is happening in our backyard, as Councillor Blaine has so forcefully put. And we must support and participate in the national and statewide campaigns that promote equality, diversity and well-being. There's no point paying lip service if we can't commit to the action. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will, thank you. I'm really heartened by everyone's opinions here. I would like to state that we have made a small start. We do have, as Councillor Paspalarius has said, a Gender Equity Action Committee, which is wonderful. We do need the plan. The plan is what is going to underpin the actions. And I'll just finish on that actions speak louder than words. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 7.11, Warrnambool Learning and Library Hub Agreements. This report provides information on operational agreements with South West Tate and seeks delegation for the CEO to enter into the necessary agreements, as well as other ancillary matters to ensure the effective completion and opening of the library. Councillors, are there any questions on this item? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Jelly.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I'd like to accept the officer's recommendation that CEO be delegated the authority to enter into the necessary agreements as well as any other ancillary matters to ensure the effective completion and opening of the library.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Blaine. Councillor Jelly, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The construction of the Learning and Library Hub is well underway. It's exciting to have seen it grow over the past 12 months over in the grounds of Southwest TAFE nearby here, and it's projected opening in September this year, which isn't far away. They've done really well through COVID lockdowns and things to continue on, so they're not too far behind the mark with a date. This important project will benefit so many in the community and surrounding areas, and to have the state-of-the-art facility sited in the CBD in a highly respected educational precinct is a coup for us all. Warrnambool City Library here, really we should have had a new library 10 years ago or more, so this is exciting for all of us, working together with Southwest TAFE. The operation of the joint public and Southwest TAFE Library will be the responsibility of Warrnambool City Council. So it is appropriate that the Warrnambool City Council CEO be delegated the authority to enter into the appropriate agreements to ensure swift action, to ensure the process is nimble and delivered on time. So I think this is very appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Councillor Blaine.
Yeah, just quickly, I wholeheartedly endorse Councillor Jelly's statement, and I think that the library is going to be a really key part of, creating better outcomes for everyone in our city. It's going to really change how so many access services and access information within our city and our region. It is a regional hub library. Just a few things on the agreement. So City Council will be in charge of, will be responsible for all the internal fittings, while TAFE will actually be responsible for the external fitting. TAFE will pay us a fee per annum in order to run the library. And it should be a really great outcome for everyone in the community, a regional library hub. And this 30-year agreement really puts together the longevity and the support that Council has behind this project, so I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion? There being no further speakers, Councillor Jelly, would you like to speak to close the debate?
No, nothing further.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion's carried unanimously. Item 7.12, informal meetings of council reports. The purpose of this report is to provide council with copies of informal meetings of council, previously known as Assembly of Councillor Records, as previously required under section 80A.2 of the Local Government Act, 1989. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I see a motion?
I just have one amendment, Mayor.
Yes.
The amendment is on the 28th of February, there is R.O. Ziegler, and I'd like the O knocked out because it's R. Ziegler. That was all.
Thank you. Someone to second the amendment? Councillor Jelly. The amendment becomes the motion. Everyone comfortable with that?
Sorry, do you want me to read the motion again? So
yes,
it'll be that the record of the informal meetings held on the 14th, 21st and 28th of February 2022 be received with the proposed amendment.
Thank you. Everyone comfortable with that? Do you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak to that? No? I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.13, Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council Activities Summary Report. This report summarises Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council activities since the last ordinary meeting, which particularly relate to the key social, economic and environmental issues of direct relevance to the Warrnambool community. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? No. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Arnott.
I'll move that the Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council Activities Summary Report be received.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Jelly. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor, is any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? There being no further speakers, Councillor Arnott, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. No notices of motions have been received. General business. General business is for items that are of minor or routine nature, and I retain the right to reject items in accordance with clause 29(2) of the governance rules. I remind councillors that you will have a maximum of 2 minutes to speak, and officers will be provided with an opportunity to respond or address any issues raised. Councillors, are there any items of general business? Councillor Blaine.
I've just got 2 questions. The first one is the trial area of the glass bins, when that was first rolled out, I think it was 2 years ago, received new lids, and everyone else, as we rolled it out across the city, have received new bins. So why hasn't the trial area had their bins replaced? That was my first question. Do you want to do that one now?
Yep.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as I explained at the formal meeting, that should have happened. We've taken that up with the contractor, and that's being made as we speak. Those new bins will be rolled out. Excuse me, there'll be some communication provided to each resident that they leave their bin out and have the new one at their premises.
That's a great outcome. That's good. The other one was on the 1st of February 2021, this motion was moved that council adopts a revised street tree planting and management policy and associated guidelines, and that council will commit to a review of the policy within 12 months. It's interesting seeing the articles that have been going on recently, especially in relation to Mr Hewlin, about the trees. It has been over 12 months, we're in March now. The motion was very clear. So the question, I did question this Monday night, and and it was made clear that we were struggling to have the resources in order to complete this work. And then a few days later, I had the CEO who emailed me and said it could be done. So I'm just asking the CEO, why hasn't this been done already, and when will this work be complete?
Mr Mayor, the work was commissioned by council or resolved by council back in February 2021, and the advice that I was given is that there were some resourcing issues in relation to that matter, and some staff changes. After the meeting on Monday, I had a meeting with the Director of Infrastructure Services, and we worked out a plan so that we can have this done, completed by May.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Any other items of general business people wish to raise? CEO, have you received any notice of items of urgent business?
There have been none, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. There being no further items of business, I declare the meeting closed at 7:29. Thank you for your attendance.